Welcome to technically the first episode of whatever we're going to call this show. And I'm going to start the show off with what I'm going to call the tip-off. So just like a tip-off in a basketball game, try to give you something useful right out the get-go. Today, we're talking about using your hand. So if you look at babies, so if you have a little one at home, especially one that's starting to actually maybe enjoy their tummy time instead of just screaming like ours does at 1 month old, watch how their hands interact with the ground. You're going to see a full contacted hand. Every finger is going to have some load in it. There's not going to be this weird arching of the hand. And then go into the gym or go into whatever setting if you are a coach or a trainer and watch what more people will tend to do as they get into adulthood. That's going to be load up the bony prominences of the hand. So we're trying to start to use passive tissues like bone and ligament for stability rather than the active nature of our hand, which is a super dexterous, strong, multi-jointed, multi-muscle thing, just like our foot. A lot of the foot stuff now gets talked about of, hey, how your foot interacts with the ground, but we don't focus on this enough, and that's very important for stability and mobility up the chain. So there's your tip off. Pay attention to your hands. If you look at any of my videos on YouTube, I'm always cueing what the hands are doing. Like I said, I don't know what we're going to call this show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a post or a poll out on Instagram and Facebook. I've had iterations of this in the past, and what I called it in the past was I had the Dr. Beau show for a while, which was video and a little bit of blog podcast. I had Anthro Health, which obviously was my podcast. We did about 50 episodes of that. So here's my ideas. We stick with the Dr. Beau show would be one. We do Anthro Health TV. Maybe we do Farm TV, or I don't really know. So we'll have a write-in section and try to make the write-ins appropriate. I'd love to call it a lot of things, but I can't do all the names I want to call it. So we'll put that poll out today after the show airs, and we'll let it run for 24 hours. We'll see what everybody comes back with, and I'll try to pick we'll go with the popular vote, unlike maybe the U.S. democratic system. Random thought of the day. I know it sounds very weird, but I went on a run yesterday. It's getting fairly hot in Alabama. It was about 85 degrees. I came in, I made the mistake of hopping in the shower. Even though I finished that shower, Wim Hof style, very cold, I got out, I had to shave, and then I started to think, you know what? Now I get why Tom Cruise was so sweaty in Top Gun when he's shaving. But then it made me think even further. Why was everybody in the 80s so sweaty? If you look at all the 80s movies, everybody's so sweaty. And I just wonder, was it like the amount of cocaine they were all doing? Was it just the economy was like bustling, so they were all very excited all the time? Was it tight jeans? I don't know. But everybody was very sweaty. Go watch any 80s movie. Everybody's sweating, right? All the time, no matter what they're wearing, working out, not working out. Random thought of the day. Question and answer. So I have actually an old high school friend sent me a message or a direct message and was asking about his daughter's running form. And he just said, hey, I'm trying to get ahead of the game, which I completely appreciate. And my daughter is getting more and more into sports and athletics and running. She's 8 years old. And I noticed that her legs kind of flare out to the side as she runs. What should I do? And, not in any type of a demeaning way, but nothing, right? She's 8 years old. I've spoken a little bit on these videos about kind of the broad timelines of human development. From 0 to 2 is a lot of central nervous system development. From 2 to 5 is when we kind of take that central nervous system and then apply it in our own world for, and these time frames are relative for everybody. They're different. 2 to 5 is kind of where we test everything. Now that we can walk and move, we got to kind of develop our own patterns. But then what's interesting is once we've got our own patterns, from 5 to 8, things called mirror neurons kick up. And that's when we start to really watch mom and dad and everybody around us and our friends, and we start to pick up social cues and all the little things that we don't really realize, like body language and breathing patterns. That's when we see kids start to adapt to, hey, did they watch mom or dad run? Also, we got to take into account anatomy. Like, how did that kid develop to the point where, hey, their hips or their ankles or neuromotor coordination may be driving that boat, but that's going to change, right? So we don't want to say that by the time you're 8 years old, you're hardwired. There's a lot of unconscious, subconscious things that have been set in place, but from a movement standpoint, you're developing for a long time after. So we want to see if things pan out naturally. Also being very aware of, is there anything wrong with that running form? Again, I've talked about people like Rita Jeptu or Priska Jeptu, famous marathoner that's won the New York Marathon numerous times. I'm sure a bunch of other marathons. If you watch her running form, it is not the prettiest by far, but she is obviously very successful, and I think has been fairly unridden by injuries. So I think she's doing pretty good. So don't worry too much if you got a kid. Now, if they get into high school and we're starting to see things like injuries show up, when we have pain in the equation, that's when I'm going to start thinking, okay, do we want to look at a little bit of mechanics and how they're moving and how they're loading their musculoskeletal system? Sure. But if we're not having pain with anything, that's where I'm very wary, especially at a young age, to interject any type of gait retraining or movement retraining or correctives. So I hope that helps somebody out. The main thing I wanted to talk about today was I did a virtual consult just a couple days ago. It was very interesting because this was an ex-patient of mine that I haven't seen for years, and this patient, after I saw her, started just getting into high-intensity interval training and working out. And this patient, when I first saw them, we noticed they had a lot of kind of poor kinesthetic awareness, so poor body awareness, very flexible, almost on the hypermobile side. And those sometimes go hand in hand. You got to think, if I have more access to more joint range of motion, it's gonna be harder to get a good picture of that in my motor cortex. So it's almost like you're walking with those strobe glasses on all the time, and you're like, I'm not quite sure where I'm at in space. I don't know if they really look like those wiggly arm peoples that I'm imitating here in front of the car sales place. That's what I'm talking about. Anyways, she alluded to that since this whole coronavirus shutdown, she hasn't been able to work out as usual, and her shoulder pain came back, which seems a little bit counterintuitive, right? That I had shoulder pain before, I did some rehab, and then I got into working out. I pushed her a little bit that way of, hey, you need to load your body because it's seeking load to have better input, better kinesthetic awareness. And she said, after the 2 to 3 weeks off already, she's noticing that she's waking up with aching in her shoulder, very stiff, and it gets better through the day. So it's very interesting to think we've had no trauma. The only thing we've done is remove high-intensity interval training, which 9 times out of 10, we're maybe going to see pain show up when we load the shoulder because that's going to elucidate some things. But what we see with somebody that has poor proprioceptive processing, maybe a lack of kinesthetic awareness, maybe sometimes we'd say a little lack of athleticism, where we're unable to coordinate all those things together, is that maybe their body, especially areas that have been beat up in the past, maybe we've had a true injury, are always seeking movement, always seeking load, because we may have had, like I said, previous injuries. So we had degradation of tissue or joint, or now we have degenerative changes or normal signs of aging or normal changes of aging. That's how we're supposed to say it now with the pain science. So we got to make sure that nobody gets their beliefs too messed up in our office. I'm not saying that in a condescending way, but I think we also take this stuff way too far. So what we kind of postulated was, hey, your shoulder, right, your body is seeking movement, and the way that it's talking to you now, instead of you talking to your joint, your shoulder, through movement and through load, it's having to kind of reverb communication at you, and the communication is pain. And the pain may not be, it probably is not in this case, tied to pathology whatsoever. And what you need to do, in my opinion, because she was asking, what drills do I need to do? She'd been doing some, like I said, HIIT training, also crossover symmetry stuff. And she said, it's not getting better, it may be getting worse. I said, maybe you just go back to working out like you were and see if it gets better or not. All right, doing the virtual workouts that everybody's providing nowadays. But in addition to that, I'm also going to try to challenge her shoulder appropriately based on what I knew previously. But also sometimes giving people rehab drills is a safety net for them, right? That I've given them something that should be benign medicine, that it shouldn't hurt no matter what, right? It's not going to cause any issues. It's not going to cause an injury. It's movement. Sometimes if I rush into a workout and I'm doing wall balls and thrusters or whatever, there's an opportunity for injury over something like a bear crawl transition and, some controlled articular rotations. I think we'd all agree with that. So sometimes it's just that vote of confidence through movement of drills that actually gets somebody prepped, rather than thinking it's very specific of, hey, now your shoulder can do this, go do that. No, your shoulder just now, and you subconsciously have the confidence to go do that. So interesting case, like I said, what the basis of that was that some people are seeking movement or input, and the crossed wire communication becomes pain where the pain isn't tied to pathology. There's no injury there. Your body's just trying to talk to you and say, hey, I'd rather you load this area because I'm trying to stabilize it through creating maybe increased bony architecture, just creating stiffness, and if you keep it moving, I'm going to keep it happy. All right, so we've got some homework at the end of each one of these shows, right? Whatever we want to call this, I'm going to give you some homework. That's a thought, right? That's an action, that's something. So here is a thought. I tried to do a YouTube webinar live yesterday, and within 5 minutes, some hater shut it down. So if you've ever seen the movie Pineapple Express, I'm a really big fan of the saying, haters gonna hate, potatoes gonna potate. People are gonna do their thing, and you gotta do your thing. So if you are in a scenario where you're afraid, say a lot of people are now trying to get their side hustle out there, they got time, or people are always trying to put creative works out now that we have all these social media avenues, or maybe now that you don't have a job, you're thinking about, hey, I should just completely switch careers to whatever I think I would rather be doing, since I have this time to create transition or create time to think or do something differently. All I'm trying to say is, if you got anybody in your life that is trying to suppress or oppress ideas, actions, whatever it is, like, that's about them, not about you, and you got to realize that. And that's very hard to, I think, take in and digest that, oh, I know it's them, I know it's their thing, but then you still say at the end of the day in your own little, temple of your head that I think I don't know if that would be successful, right? Or I'm afraid to put that idea out there. This show, I'm going to do far more different things than just talk about health, like this message we're talking about. Not because I feel like I'm some sage of wisdom, because I enjoy talking about these things, because I don't think we talk about things that should be talked about enough, right? There's a lot of small talk nowadays. There's a lot of social media jabs, right? There's a lot of, I'm going to put this out there, I get comments, but there's no conversation, there's no dialogue that occurs. Not that there is on this video, but you can't comment on these videos, you can send me an email. But what I want to say is thoughts, right, deeper than, like I said, passing by conversation or small talk, need to be discussed more and more, because there's a lot of big issues to talk about. And again, I don't have solutions to all these issues. I don't have the top level knowledge in all the areas I talk about. Just trying to bring up stuff that's important to me, which means probably also important to other people, and hopefully people take something away from that. So that's your homework. Don't let people hate, and don't let potatoes potate, or I guess let them do whatever they're gonna do, because that's what they're gonna do. Again, review, got a poll coming at you guys. Help me pick the name of this show. This show is going to air, let's talk about that, every weekday at 10 a.m. This will get released on YouTube, and then I'll put it out on the social medias after that. Maybe every once in a while we'll do a live edition. Maybe we'll do like Friday live or something. I don't know, something like that. If I can, at 10 a.m. We'll see if any potatoes are going to show up and shut me down if I try to do another live. But 10 a.m. Central every weekday on YouTube. This will get released. We'll think about a live. You guys maybe comment and tell me if that's something you'd be interested in. Maybe we can do more Q&A. I always need fodder. I need some kindling for these shows. So send me some Q&A, send me some messages. I love getting it in there so I can know what you guys are thinking about, what we want to talk about. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.